Welcome again to another fantastic presentation in the NLP Masters Summit. I'm your one and only host, Eugene Popa, and I have with me right now Cherry Farrow, who is a passionate trainer and six-figure entrepreneur, I would say, in the world of NLP. She hails all the way out from Australia, and she has been doing NLP. She's been involved with NLP since 2013. She actually completed hypnosis, NLP practitioner, master practitioner, and trainer's training in NLP. She's actually the second female trainer in Australia to have a degree of master trainer in NLP. She's a six-figure coach, and she actually also did a pilot program and received a grant funding for her successful Mind School program. So Cherry is a very alive, I would say, person, and I love so much to be able to communicate with her because she has so much information and so much, like I said, vivacity and so much energy when she's talking and presenting, and you'll see that along our presentation today. And today she is going to present about the human communication model. So Cherry, thank you so much for being here with us today, and I'm very happy to and very looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks very much, Eugene, for having me. It's very exciting to be here and part of the NLP Masters Summit. And yes, I'll be presenting on the human communication model, which I thought if we go right back to the very foundations to find out why we do what we do, why are we the way that we are, I think it's a very important learning for all of us. It gives us the ability to make changes then if we want to. So I'm very excited to be here and looking forward to speaking with you about it all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, you'll see me looking down. I have my book and my pick. In Romania we call this pix. So it's my pencil, and I'm going to take notes. And I advise everybody who's watching this presentation to do the same. So yeah, take it away. I'm all ears and eyes and minds.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, so if you don't mind, Eugene, I'll just share my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint that I've created just for this presentation. So we are going to be talking about the human communication model, and once we understand the way that we communicate with ourselves and also communicate externally, I think it does have the opportunity to allow us to create that empowered life. Understanding who we are at the very core helps us make changes that then don't benefit us. So I'm very passionate about this is like I said to you earlier, this is a very foundational level of NLP training. We learn this and I teach it in our just 2-day seminars as well as in our practitioner training and as well as in master practitioner, because I think once we grasp the idea of this communication model, it absolutely opens up our world so that we're able to engage in the world differently, but also be able to establish relationships with other people at a very deep level. And it also understands our behaviours, the results that we're getting in life, and gives us the ability to change things if we're not getting the results that we want. So I thought I'd just put this up just in case it slips out for me today. All right. So people have asked me to create those T-shirts. It's in the making, but I haven't quite got them as yet. So we are.
Let me know when you have it. Let me know when you have it.
I will do. So, and I think that's the thing. I think with NLP, it is about understanding that everything that we do, it doesn't matter how serious it can be. Once we understand how we create our reality, it gives us the opportunity to infuse that fun into it, to be able to have fun as well, no matter how serious things are. So we are talking about Neuro Linguistic Programming, NLP. So I call them 3 little letters that saved my life and have changed and transformed many other people's lives as well. I'm not going to go through what NLP stands for because I'm sure that Eugene has explained all of that in detail, and also many of the other presenters as part of this summit would have as well. What I'm going to be looking at though is how do we create our world? Like, how do we create what's happening around us? Why is it that we have different results in our life to other people? Why are there millionaires in the world and poverty as well? And I think a lot of that comes down to what we believe about ourselves. Of course, life situations and circumstances do contribute to it, but I don't think that they need to be the blocks for us to be able to achieve what we want. It's also realizing that not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone, wants to be working full on, full time, doing all those things. What I'm going to be talking to you about is about how we can create our own success, what success means to us, which will be totally different to what it means to anybody else. So when we look at reality itself, like what's happening around us, there are certain things that we cannot change. Like we can't change that there are oceans in the world and that we have solid ground under our feet, or that, grass and trees grow. There's actual factual stuff that we can't change. I mean, we have tsunamis, we have wars, we have all those things that are actually happening. So they are in our reality and they are factual. But what we do have the ability to do is alter the meaning that we give these things. So how do we do this? So as you can see, I've got my little representation of the world, of what I call our actual reality, the factual stuff that's happening out there. But then how do we actually interpret this information? You see, we all think that we actually, whatever's happening outside of us, we have a total picture of what it is. We hear everything there is to hear, we see everything there is to see, and we get the feelings associated with what we see and what we hear. And I always think that's an extremely interesting idea, because once people realize this human communication model, it's a bit like that really big aha moment, that light going off, where they realize that, oh my goodness, what I thought was real was basically made up in my mind. So you ready to get into it, Eugen? Shall we go?
Yeah, let's do it. You gave me some ideas already just by watching this presentation and listening to you.
Fantastic. Okay. So basically, according to Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, now they're words, and that's something that you do not have to remember, but I do like to quote my sources. So he did say that we have about 2 million bits of information that we're processing every second. And I think that number has actually grown exponentially with the advent of technology, social media, websites, the amount of information that we have access to. I would say that it's maybe around 2 to 12 million bits of information per second that we take in. So why does this matter? Well, interestingly enough, this information, we gather this information through our 5 senses. So it's what we see, what we hear, then what we feel or touch, smell and taste. So see, hear, feel, smell, taste, okay? So that in itself, the information that we take in depends on what our stronger system is. Are we more visual? Are we more auditory? Are we more kinesthetic? Right? So it's based on that as well. I won't go into too much detail there, but all I want you to know is that we're gathering this information through our 5 senses. It's the only way that we can make sense of what's going on around us. Now, interestingly enough, once we gather this information, consciously, we're only aware of 134 bits. Right? Now, George Miller, in his book, I'm going to have to reference the article. It wasn't actually a book, it was an article that he wrote. And the article was the magic number 7 plus or minus 2. So what does that mean? So we literally have to take that 2 to 12 million bits of information and dissect it right down into 134 bits so that we can consciously process that information. Because obviously if we were taking in too much of that information, we'd be in total overwhelm. Our world would be totally chaotic, okay? So then how do we determine which bits of this information that we actually take in? All right. So this information actually passes through what we call our filtering system. So we delete, distort, and generalize information. But on what basis? I'm hoping that you're asking that question as well. On what basis? So it depends on your values and your beliefs, your memories or life experiences, decisions that you've made that have brought you to where you are today. Metaprograms, which are a very deep unconscious filter, and metaprograms is something that we teach in our master practitioner training, but I do believe that it's something that everyone should be aware of so that they have an understanding even more so of themselves and also of other people. Now, those things create our attitudes, and you may have wondered yourself, why do some people have different attitudes to others? Why do some people jump out of bed on a Monday morning and ready to, hit that working week with fever and joy, whereas others can't get out of bed on a Monday morning. Well, again, it all comes back to what we value, what we believe, what our life experiences have been. And then we also use words to actually determine or to be able to explain what is happening for us. Okay, so let me just give you a little example of that, about deleting, distorting, and generalizing. See, we have to be able to do that so that we can chunk down the information or the number of bits that are coming into our neurology at every second, basically. So, say for example, you went for an interview, or you went for, say, 2 or 3 interviews and you didn't get that job. Well, then you might generalize that you're not good at interviews or that you fail at interviews. And then down the track, you might generalize even more by saying that you fail at everything. So then the information that you're processing through your filters are going to try and prove that you are no good at interviews. So even if you have evidence to the contrary, you will question it. You'll actually do a distortion or even a deletion of that information. You might distort it by saying something like, say by chance you do get an interview in the end, or you get the job from an interview. You might distort that information by saying, oh, I was just lucky with that one. Because you've already developed a belief about yourself, a generalization that you are no good at interviews, which then, again, like I said, you might even go broader in that by identifying as being no good. Yeah. What I have found with people that I've worked with, and I think this is actually a universal, I believe, is that so many people, when they come for coaching or for therapy, the first thing that we usually do is remove a belief about themselves, about them not being good enough. Have you found that too, Eugen?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the question which I always get, which I'm going to pass over to you right now is, oh, well, okay, we're doing a session. You remove my belief magically so. How long will that last?
Mm-hmm. So it depends on the method that you use. My methods, and I'm sure yours are very similar, Eugen, is that they last for as long as you want them to last, or in my case, when I do it, they last forever, because we use a process that actually ensures that that belief is gone for good. So we actually replace it with evidence of how you were good enough, for example. So you can no longer believe that which has been proven unequivocally as being true. So you are now good enough. So it's a process that we use that we obviously teach in NLP as well. It's called the belief change. We also have processes where we use the timeline to be able to go back and remove like the root cause of a belief that you may have about yourself. And through that process, we ask you to extract the learnings. Like, you know, every situation in life happens to us because there's something that we need to learn from and to take from it so that we can grow and evolve. Unfortunately, we don't always take the learning. Instead, we decide to hold on to that belief or hold on to that that emotion even at times. So, but there are definitely processes that we use to be able to eradicate those beliefs which are limiting for you. Yeah. Does that answer the question, Eugen?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Totally.
Awesome. All right. So when we're looking at the way that we filter this information, again, if you've got a belief that, I don't know, people are mean, for example, whenever you go out or go to parties with your friends or whatever it is that you do, or people that you're speaking with, because you have that belief, you're going to be looking for evidence that's going to confirm that your assumption is correct. So can you see how then what's actually happening outside of us, we are not taking it in as it's really happening. We're filtering it first through our own filters and then coming up with the end result of what we believe is reality. And so I said that a little bit convoluted, so I'm going to try and be a little bit simpler with that. So what we do in psychology, they call it confirmation bias. So if you believe something about yourself, if you believe about something about somebody else, if you believe something about science, religion, politics, whatever it might be, when you are filtering information that's coming to you from what we call the outside world, you will be looking for stuff that's going to prove that your belief is true. Now, if we have good beliefs, that's all well and good. But if we have poor beliefs, beliefs that actually allow us to feel flat, heavy, depressed, that don't make us feel good, they're the beliefs that then we look at changing. But either way, you are always searching for what's happening around you. You're only searching for that information, filtering on information that's going to prove that your belief is correct. Is that making sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And as far as I know, there's this thing called the reticular activating or activator system. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. Yes, that's right. So it's searching for that which we believe, and so it's searching for that which we believe. So basically, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So what happens is when we experience an event or experience a situation and we filter it through, what then happens, it results in an internal representation. I'm just going to bypass that for a moment. It results in an internal representation of that event. And that can at times then become our focus as well. Now, you've all heard about the law of attraction. So whatever we focus on, we bring into our life. That's what we're calling about this self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, we manifest. We manifest what we are actually focusing on. But when we look at this model, the human communication model, we gather information through our 5 senses. They pass through our filters, which are our values and beliefs, memories, decisions, metaprograms, attitudes, language, by deletion, distortion, and generalization. That then results in an internal representation of that event inside of you. So it's the pictures, sounds, and feelings that we create in relation to what we've just experienced. That then also affects our state or how we're feeling, and which in turn affects our physiology, the way that we carry our body. Okay. So now all of that coupled together, that physiological response, that means either you will be laughing or you'll be crying, you'll be hugging or shaking or whatever it might be. Yeah. So in whatever state that you're in, you are then going to act differently. So your behaviors and your actions will then produce the results that you have in your life based on the state that you're in. So if you're feeling frightened, your behavior and your actions are going to be different to if you're feeling really confident about something. Okay?
Yes.
So I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. Oops, sorry. I've gone the wrong way. Oh, goodness me. So it's remembering that what's happening outside of us is very different to how we then represent that information inside of us. Because we create our own reality, because the internal representation we create within us is very different to the reality that's happening outside of us, because we're filtering that information. And yet we'll put words to our experience, the language. And I love the word language because it is just a gauge of what's actually happening. But we put words or labels to our experience, which cements even further in our beliefs cements even further that which we believe is true. The interesting part is, though, when we look at that, when we're looking at perception is projection, for example, because we can't perceive anything outside of us that isn't within us, because we're filtering it. It's going in and we're projecting it out, like a movie.
Yeah.
Like a movie. So the interesting part is that what that means is that we do not see things as they are, we see things as we are, which was coined by Carl Jung. We do not see things as they are, we see things as we are. Which means what we then represent to ourselves is based, and then our behaviour, our actions, our results in life are a combination of that, because we're basing that on our interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really real. Okay?
Yeah.
So when we look at that, we do not see things as they are, we see things as we are. It allows us then also to get in touch with those things that we push outside of ourselves. So say, for example, you might have a person that you know, and I'll try to keep it as real as I can here. You might have a person that you know that really irks you. You know, I'm going to say the words, that really pisses you off. And you will look at them and say, they are this, they are that, you know, everything's going to be about them. Yeah? What we need to realise, though, is that ultimately we're only seeing them like that because of what we have filtered, and we're projecting that out onto them. Now, I'm going to go a little bit deeper here, Eugene, because
yes.
Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that are trying to do no good by us, but ultimately, if we don't feel any negative emotion about it, we don't have a charge of any sort, then we know it's not our projection. But if what that person is doing is affecting you, and you feel yourself getting all stirred up, and you know they're irritating you, and you feel you're getting frustrated or upset or whatever it might be, it's having that understanding that it's possibly the shadow self that your unconscious mind is bringing to your awareness to give you the opportunity to address it, to give you the opportunity to work out, okay, asking yourself the question, what is it about this that's making me feel that way? What is it within me that I need to alter or change so that I no longer am affected by that person or that thing?
Yes. And, you know, when you want to make this change in yourself and in your filter, like, you know, there are so many, okay, so the world is happening out here. I have my senses. Then I also have my, you know, internal systems and programs and all that stuff, you know, which you are showing in the slide. At what level or at what point do I need to intervene to actually have a more accurate representation of the world as it is?
I love that question. It's about it's about allowing yourself to actually have a look at where you are at in your life. If you're not getting the results that you want, then it's about looking at what are the beliefs that are holding you back? What are the attitudes that are holding you back? What are the life experiences? Whatever it might be, what's holding you back from getting it? Because the only reason you're not where you want to be, the only reason you're not getting the results that you want to get, is because you have limitations within you that need to be released. You have beliefs or values, life experiences, which again, all of it brings you back to those beliefs that you have about yourself, about your ability, about your capability of what you can or can't do. So if you're not getting the results in your life that you want, it's about looking at that and going, okay, what is stopping me? Being brave enough to go, you know, okay, I know that I'm in control here. I need to make the changes for me to get the results that I want. Because we can always blame someone else. We can blame, you know, back in, I think it was 2008, the global financial crisis. We can blame COVID-19 now. We can blame everything else. But what we need to do is, rather than blaming outside of us, it's looking within and going, okay, other people have succeeded in those environments. You know, what is it that they did?
Yeah.
Maybe there's someone you could model, adopt their beliefs about it, adopt their values about it. But it's about ultimately looking within. What can you change that's going to give you a different result? What are different actions that you can take that's going to give you a different result? What state do you need to be in? And I love when we're talking about the emotional state. Now, those three things that I showed you before, they're actually intertwined. So your internal representation of the world outside of you, that you represent internally to you, within you, then affects your emotional state and affects your physiology. But it works the other way around as well. And I know Tony Robbins often talks about the research I did at Harvard University about the power pose. You know, if you stand there as, well, Wonder Woman is what I stand as, but if you stand there as your favorite superhero in that power pose, it actually reduces, I think it, what does it do? It reduces your cortisol level by 22%, increases your chances of taking action by about 33%, which is major. Like, that's 1/3 more chance you've got of achieving what you want just by simply changing your physiology and standing strong and confident.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's kind of like plays along the line of fake it until you make it. You know, it's like I can crumble inside, but since I'm posing like that, you don't see that. And because you not see me crumbling, but you see me, you know, sitting up straight and puffy, then like, oh, okay, he's got his stuff together, you know, so I will change my attitude towards you just because you have an attitude that you're putting outwards.
That's right. But for me, I guess, Eugen, it's more about doing it for myself. Like, you know, when I stand in that power pose, you know, it's a bit like if you droop your shoulders and hang your head and all of that, and then you say to yourself, you know, I'm so happy, it's just not going to work. But the same happens, like if you stand up tall and look up and say to yourself, I'm so sad, that's not going to work either. So our physiology, the way we carry our body, affects how we feel within as well.
Yeah,
So
there was a very beautiful story I heard about Milton Erickson, where he at some point had a client who came in, and after the session, he was telling this client, he said, your job for the next week or whatever, I paraphrase because I don't know the exact proper story. And he was saying, your job is to walk, but when you walk down the street, I want you to look at the top of the trees.
Yep.
So wherever you go, wherever you're walking, look at the roofs of the buildings and the top of the trees. Just walk around like that.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And that was a gentleman. I know the story well myself because it was someone who went to see him who was experiencing depression. And because what we've determined, like because as you know, NLP is based on the study of excellence, study of success. Yeah. So we know from people who have, you know, for example, not just in therapy, but in the business world as well. But when we're talking therapy, who have obviously experienced and been through depression and got through it on their own. So they studied what did they do different, and it was about we realized that if you look up, you cannot feel sad.
Yeah.
But
did I hear a child in your house?
Yes, I've got a few of them running around.
Perfect. Because I have a great story about this. I don't know how young your children are, but here's a cool stuff for everybody who is watching this and has kids. So there's this trick I've learned. I don't remember where, but I know it works. So if we have a baby who's crying, and when I say baby, it's like 1, 2, 3 years old, 4, 5 years old, whatever. So if they're crying, it's like I have this microphone here, right? So you go right here, like just, you know, like really touching them, close to them, and look down at them, looking down to them. So you're forcing them to look up at you, and just being so close, ask them what's going on. And no matter how hard they're crying, they will stop crying. Because you cannot cry with your head like this. So you stay there, you talk with them, and they'll stop crying like magic.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a great little technique.
Yeah.
Great little technique.
Manipulating our own kids here.
You made me actually think about too, like when we're talking about deletion, the way we filter stuff and how we delete, distort, and generalize information. Just think about when you're in a movie theater and there is, you know, you're watching a movie on the big screen and there's a baby crying. Are you able to delete the sound of the baby and keep focused on the movie? Or are you no longer able to concentrate on the movie and focus on the baby? You see, so we delete different things. So we're deleting things all the time as well. So yeah, very interesting. But that technique is great. And just for another one, if you're actually peeling onions or cutting onions, if you do look up and actually put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, that'll stop you from crying as well.
All right, good.
There's a little free tip for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. But it's also about then when we're looking at, you know, so we can if we are creating internal representations that are making us feel pretty crappy, making us feel inside, we know then that what we're focusing on is not what we want, it's what we don't want. But on the other hand, what we can do as well is we can change our emotional state simply by just remembering a moment when we were happy or when we were having a great time, whatever it might be. And in that instant, you can experience that change of emotion or that change of state. If you're going in for one of those interviews, it's about going back to a time when you were confident. And the beauty about the unconscious mind or your imagination, it doesn't matter how far back that you have to go for that confidence. I say to people like, you learn to walk as a baby. You think about the confidence, the determination, the discipline, the dedication that it took to do that. If you can do that, you can do anything. Yeah. You learn to talk, you learn the ABC. All those letters are a jumble when you first start. But then you learnt it, and if you can learn that, you can learn anything. And that's the start. It's reminding yourself of those things that you have done well, that you are good at, no matter how far back you have to go. And that will immediately change your state. But not just that, that has the ability to be able to change your beliefs about yourself. Because as we get older, we forget all those amazing things we used to be able to do as young children or young adults or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
We forget. It's that reminder. I mean, for people who learned how to ride a bike, you think about that discipline, the dedication, the determination that it took to, progress from trainer wheels to two wheels. The confidence that took. So we are incredibly capable beings. We just let our bullshit stories get in the way.
And we do so because we have bullshit stories. If we wouldn't have them, they wouldn't get in the way.
Yeah. And it's knowing that if you are not getting what you want, if you're not getting the results, it's all because you are running on replay over and over again your bullshit story.
Yeah. I have a great story about this. I found this video, which is I think it's 30 seconds or 1 minute. I forget how, it's not very long. It's under a minute anyway. There's this tiny little girl with a beautiful, tutu dress, and she's trying to climb on a pony. And she's grabbing on the pony's tail, on the pony's hair, and she's trying to get on the pony. And I put this video, I put a little text with it, and that video has been my most viral video to date. It's got today until I think 6.5 million views on my Facebook page.
Wow.
I know. And the moral of the story is this: kids don't know when to fail. They don't know. They have not learned to fail. And, because we say, I've tried, it didn't work, so I'm going to give up. Well, she has been trying, and her mom was filming. She was not intervening. Her mom was just sitting there, and she's been trying, and she tried 17 times until she could actually climb on the pony. 17 times. How many times have you tried and then failed and said it didn't work? That's kind of she didn't learn to fail at that age. So she has no story to fall back onto. It's well, I tried that time, it didn't work out, so it's not going to work out now either.
That's exactly right. And Eugene, that's why I think that NLP should be taught in every school, every adult education institution, anywhere and everywhere. Yeah. Actually, my mission is to have one NLP master practitioner in every household globally, because I believe that's a change that it makes. Unfortunately, that little girl was very lucky. She had a parent who understood. She was just going to let it go and keep trying and keep trying. But how many parents, and I know myself, my own parents, you'll never be able to do that. That's just not something that we can do, My parents had a big block around money. I was born in a communist country in Croatia. So they had a big block about money as well. And unfortunately, we're talking about generational things that come down to us, the beliefs that are instilled in us. And I had that belief for a very long time until I learned NLP. And I realized that there is so much abundance out there. But again, we're coming back to our bullshit stories, what we tell ourselves. They're not always ours either. Those beliefs, those values, they're not ours. It's what we've downloaded as little children. And I think that if everyone was exposed to learning NLP and actually really, adopted the principles, the core beliefs of NLP, the world will be a very different place. And children and adults themselves will know that there is no such thing as failure. We never fail. It's only feedback on how we can do it differently to get the results that we want, you know?
And you cannot repeat that enough times. I'm telling you, you cannot repeat that enough times.
No, exactly
because
right.
we have been always, like you said yourself, you know, we've been taught, and regardless where you are in the world, we've been taught that you either win or fail.
Yep.
This was the model of the process we've been told. You know, if you don't win, you're automatically failed. It's either winning or failing or losing. There is nothing else. And, you know, that's been the mother of so many troubles.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's about, look, it's knowing that, you know, if there's always going to be a winner. It doesn't matter. There is always going to be a winner. Whenever we're running a race or whatever it is, there's always going to be a winner. But what I love about that is, okay, what can I learn from that person? What can I learn? What is it they're doing that's different? You know, what makes them be the winner? So when we're talking about NLP and modeling, again, it comes back to what are we filtering inside our own mind? What changes can we make there to be able to get the different results? Yeah, because what we want to make sure is that the results that we get are what we want. Now, when we do this communication model, it's also understanding that none of this is set in stone. See, in organisations, when they do that Myers-Briggs type indicator, you know, when you determine whether you're a judge or a perceiver, a sensor intuitor, you know, all of that, people all of a sudden get their little initials or their letters and believe that that's all they are. But nothing about us is set in stone. We have so much potential to be anything that we want, and that's what we need to be able to get through. You know, we can be and do anything that we want. That's going to make us happy. Now, what's going to make me happy is totally different to what's going to make you happy, Eugen. What's going to make you happy is going to be totally different who's going to make, you know, the person next door happy. It's realizing what is it that we want? What is it that what does success mean to us? Because that word is different for everybody. My daughter, and I love this, like, you know, her goal is to be a mum and have children. Now, how many young adults have the freedom to be able to do that or say that? Because these days, they're 12, they have to go to school, they have to finish year 12, they have to go to university, they have to get a degree, they have to have a great job, you know, they have to do all these things. How wonderful if success to you was something different to that, and that you were able to be okay with it. Because again, that's about how you're processing your reality. What are you filtering on? You have to ask yourself, what's true for me? Okay, I believe this at the moment, but where's the truth behind that? You know, where are the indicators that show that that is really true? My values, are they mine or are they somebody else's? See, when we get brave enough to ask questions of ourselves, to actually understand our psyche, to understand what we're filtering on, that gives us the ability to make any changes that we want to. Because nothing about us is set in stone. Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. The brain is plastic, and my good friend Anthony Jacquin has actually written a book a while back called "Reality is Plastic."
Yeah, it is. Have a look. That's what we're showing here, Eugen. Reality is plastic, because what we think is reality isn't. It's what we filtered on and then created our own internal reality of it. Yeah. And we can change that, because I think the next slide that I've got here is, I'm going to go back this way, sorry. You have to remember, whatever we're filtering on, what's happening outside of us actually doesn't have a meaning until we give it a meaning. See, nothing, no matter what, whether it is COVID, whether it is tsunamis, whether it is war, nothing, or whether it is someone giving you a wrong look, you know, a baby crying. It can be as simplistic or as complex as you want, but nothing has meaning until you give it a meaning, which means we can give ourselves a moment, a pause, or as I like to say, Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a gap, and in that gap lay our freedom. And for me, that means I hit the pause button when something happens, and I think, okay, that doesn't have a meaning yet. What meaning am I going to give it? What meaning?
I'm taking notes as you're speaking. That's why I'm looking down, just so you know.
Fabulous. So nothing has meaning until you give it a meaning. And again, that's one thing that Tony Robbins has said, the quality of our life depends on the questions that we ask ourselves. Yes, we're filtering all this information. Mm-hmm. But when it comes through and when we're creating our internal representation within us of what's happened outside of us, it's about asking ourselves, if we're having that ooky feeling, what are we focusing on? So do you want to focus on those things that make you feel crappy? Or do you want to focus on something that makes you feel good? Because if you're feeling crappy, the question is, what are you focusing on? And then asking yourself, so what do I want to focus on? And then there's only really 3 questions. What are you focusing on? What meaning are you going to give things? And what action am I going to take to change that now? And that's why, Eugene, I had a very dysfunctional childhood. I experienced physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. And it wasn't until I found NLP and timeline therapy, and I am very grateful to Tad James, who was the creator of timeline therapy. It wasn't until I found NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnosis that I was actually able to change my life. Because until then, I was blaming the world. I was blaming everyone and anyone for why I was feeling the way that I was. I didn't take any responsibility for it myself because I had these beliefs about myself that I was undeserving, that I was unworthy, that I didn't deserve any of that. And you can see then that anything that happens out in the external world, I wanted to point to the globe, but anything that's happening out in the external world, out here, when I was filtering it through those filters that I had then, it certainly wasn't having me feeling in a great way because I was angry at everyone. I was angry at the world. I was angry at why this happened to me, But once I found NLP and timeline therapy and hypnosis, I realised that, hey, and I think that was the mammoth thing for me, is that I am in control of this. I can control what I think. I can control what beliefs I have. I can control what goes on inside of me. And to be able to remove those beliefs, those limitations and those negative emotions, it's amazing now the space that I'm living in. Like, I never thought it was possible until I did this, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. But the space that I'm living in now is just absolutely beautiful. I can't even put words to it, but it's such a far cry from where I was.
And it's the space that you created.
Yes.
It's the space that you've built. It didn't happen to you. You made it.
Yeah. And there was a lot of the shadow that I had to look at because that was me. That was me creating that. And once I addressed that, because we've all heard the saying, that which you resist persists. So I was prepared to look at all of that and go, you know what? No, I'm going to get rid of that. That's not serving me. I'm going to get rid of that. That's not serving me. So I invested a lot of time, money, and energy into myself, and it's the best thing I could have ever done. I now live a life of, in abundance in every way. I'm not just talking about financially, but in every way. And I think one of the best things is the relationship I have with myself is incredible. Because I understood this filtering system. I understood what I was deleting. I understood what I was distorting. I understood what I was generalizing. And then bit by bit, I started changing all of that, asking these questions.
Yeah, and that is so important. That is so important. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was going to go on and say, so now, because we know nothing has meaning until you give it meaning, this filtering system that we're all going through, the understanding that we also need to have, and this is just crucial, I believe, is that we need to remember that everybody is doing the same thing. So we have to respect the other person's model of the world. How many times do we pass judgment on somebody because they're doing something that goes against our values or our beliefs? But when we look at this filtering system, it's the understanding that they are doing that as well. Their life experience were different. Their upbringing was very different. Their beliefs would therefore be different, and their values would therefore be different. It doesn't mean that we're right and they're wrong. It's just that we all filter this information differently. So we need to understand that. So when someone's doing something that goes against what we believe, it's respecting their model of the world, understanding that their map that they have created is very different to ours. It's not right, it's not wrong. Mm-hmm. So it gives us the ability to look at someone and go, I wonder what you're filtering on, or I wonder what they're filtering on, to do that. It's an incredible, empowering position to be in, to be able to look at another person and go, wow, you're filtering differently, rather than going, you're a bitch, or you're a this, or you're a that. It's going, wow, I wonder what you're filtering on, because it's obviously very different to what I am. And your approach to people is so very different, and that changes your relationships with people, with, the world in general.
Absolutely. And, that will bring so much freedom, because you will stop playing the blaming game, right? And for me, I've noticed this so many times. It's so easy to blame. Most people blame, the world outside. Some people blame themselves. But I've always played with this idea, what if we could be in a world where there is nobody to be blamed? That where a world where nobody is guilty. How would that look like? That's going to be a very interesting game to play, where you say, okay, so this guy had an accident, and of course we're looking to see who is to blame. Right? Well, maybe if we don't do that anymore, maybe it'll open new pathways and new ways of communicating. What do you think, Terry?
Actually, it's very interesting that, Eugen, because very, very often in my seminars and trainings that I do, there's generally a person. I'll talk about one lady in particular who was coming through to one of my 2-day seminars, and she rang me only a couple of days before the seminar was due to start, and she rang to say that she wasn't going to be able to come because she'd had a car accident. And we had this conversation, and I said to her, because you did have that car accident, it's probably best that you do come. Anyway, she did come along to this seminar, and as part of when we were talking about beliefs or limiting decisions, one of the things that I say is that there really are no accidents. There are no accidents in life. And when I said that, I said to her, now, about your car accident, what do you think? And she looked at me, and without a blink, she just said, oh, well, I always knew it was going to happen. Now, isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible? Because she said, from a young girl, I just didn't know when, but from a young girl, I always knew I was going to have that accident. I was just waiting for it to happen. So she got it. She understood that, oh, wow, I had this belief about this, and of course, self-fulfilling prophecy. Luckily she wasn't injured. But you think about all those other beliefs that we have, and beliefs that people install in us. I mean, as a 14-year-old, I went to see a palm reader with my best friend, and the palm reader took my palm and read my palm, and she told me that I was going to pass away at 37. Now, you imagine living your life with that belief.
I can't, it's not in my books, crazy. I'm telling you.
No, that's right. So, but the thing is realizing that it doesn't matter what anybody says to you. That might be their belief, but it doesn't mean that it needs to be yours. So with NLP, we can go in there and change those beliefs. Now, of course, being only 25, Eugen, I don't know whether it's going to happen or not, but no, that was a joke. You didn't get,
Yeah, of course.
I've gone past 37, and I'm still here, so I'm very happy about that. But it's about changing. But it's about changing those beliefs and realizing that just because someone else believes it, it's asking yourself, is it true for you? Is it true for you?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily so much of a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's more like if it happens, whatever you expect to happen, you kind of like, even if it didn't happen, you would think that it happened, just because you need to be at peace. What is called, what is that called? Cognitive dissonance, right? Now, if you have a certain belief, you have to fulfill it somehow, right? You have to fulfill that belief because you have it, it's yours, even though you don't know you have it. I was talking, and I know you have the same experience. You're talking to people, clients who come to you for coaching or for courses, for training, and they come to you and say, I would like for you to make me feel better. And then you say, so define better.
Yeah.
And they go, well, I don't know. And I was just like, well, if you don't know, how would you know you're going to be better if you don't know what better is, if you didn't define it? So that expectation is like, well, it's going to be different from now. Well, it can be different words.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's very, very interesting that, because I get referrals from our local doctors and from psychologists as well to work with people who have been diagnosed with clinical depression. And I can remember one gentleman who came in to see me. This is probably very early on, possibly one of my first clients, I think, with depression. I can't quite remember now, but he came in, and the first question I said to him was, so you know what feeling depressed now, like you are now, what that feels like, don't you? And he goes, well, yeah, of course I do. And I said, so what's the opposite of that? And do you know, he said to me, or like he sat there for ages, it was like, a deer in the headlights. He just sat there with his eyes wide thinking, and I don't know what he was processing in his mind, but in the end he said to me, do you know, I have been struggling for 20 years with this, and not one person has ever asked me that question.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing, isn't it? Because once he realised that there was an opposite, because he had to go within, like I said, he had to go through these filters and stuff. He had to go within to find out what the opposite of it was. And it was crazy. In less than 6 hours, we worked together. In less than 6 hours, he walked out of that door, and that would have been, I don't know how many years ago now, and he's been depression-free ever since. He says he's cured. And let me tell you, so many referrals now, because, it's just amazing. He just is blown away by it all. But that's the thing. It's about, again, asking ourselves, like you said, better. But what does that mean to you? What is this internal representation of better? What are the pictures, the sounds, the feelings that you're creating? Because when we're talking about alignment, that's the whole thing. The internal representation, what you see, what you hear, what you feel, and what you say to yourself all have to match for you to get the results that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And
again,
now he's better because he believes he's better.
Yeah, well, we did. Yeah, it's a phenomenal process. It was just phenomenal, and it's just been. And I think what the mind-blowing thing is, for all the people that I've worked with who have experienced depression and usually and PTSD as well for a long time in their life, they can't believe how quickly, like for someone who has experienced this for 15, 20 years, and they come for, I call it a 2-day session, but it's less than, say 8 hours. They can't believe that in that time they can actually release all of that has been a bane in their life for 15 to 20 years. And it's only because we understand, and I'm pointing at my screen again, which you can't see, but we understand what we're filtering on. We understand the deletions, the distortions, the generalizations. We understand what your beliefs are about it, your values, how you're creating those pictures in your mind, the words that you're saying, and that gives us the ability, and that's why I love NLP, it gives us the ability to change any of that to make it a much more peaceful, fruitful life for anybody. But we have to, but the thing is, Eugene, I can't do the work for anybody. I can help them, but they have to be prepared to have a look within themselves to understand this process, to then know what to change to get the results that they do want.
Yeah, beautiful. Wonderful. This has been a wonderful presentation. I learned so much, and I'm so excited because I took so many notes. Like I said, in the beginning, I got my notebook here and I took some notes from the presentation. Now, where can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more from you? If they want to, maybe dive into some of the programs or products that you have, how can they reach you?
Yep, absolutely. There we are. There. So it's Successful Minds Institute. And the phone number is 1-800-4-SUCCESS, and that is an international number as well. Or email.
Oh, nice number.
Yeah, 1-800-4-SUCCESS, yeah. And the email address is just ask@successfulminds.com.au.
Awesome. All right. So guys, everybody who's watching this, if you want to learn more from Sherry, if you want to get in touch with her, if you want to go and take her courses, programs, classes, or get in touch with her, that's how you find her. And go ahead and do that now. And what I would like to do now, of course, as we're coming to the end of this presentation, take your notes if you've got any, and I hope you did. And if you didn't, then you can just watch the replay. And if you want to watch the replay, of course, go ahead and get your premium pass. But go ahead and share your key points, key ideas from this presentation. Go ahead and share them with us in the Facebook group, and then take a quick break. And then we'll see you in the next presentation, or we'll see you in the next day. So Sherry, thank you so much for taking the time, and I'm looking forward to connect again soon.
Thank you very much.